July 14. 66. It was on the 14th of Luz, during the festival of Xylophary, or wood-carrying, at Jerusalem, to feed the perpetual fire at the sacred altar, that the zealots destroyed the house of Ananias the chief priest, and the palaces of Agrippa and Berenice, with all the public archives, containing the bonds of debtors, the nerves of the city. 1099. Jerusalem taken by the Crusaders. 1420. Battle of Prague. 4,000 Hussites under their celebrated leader Ziska, repelled the Bohemian army of 30,000 under the Emperor Sigismund. 1514. Christopher Bainbridge, an English archbishop, poisoned at Rome. He was the envoy of Henry VIII to the Pope, where he distinguished himself. 1584. Balthazar Gerard, the assassin of William Prince of Orange, whom he shot through the breast with a pistol as he was going out of his palace at Delft, was executed in the same manner as Damiens Q.V., and died, in his own conceit, a martyr of the Church of Rome. 1675. Mendon, Massachusetts, attacked by the Nipmuc Indians, and several persons killed. Mather says blood was never shed in Massachusetts, in the way of hostility, before this day. 1678. The expedition under M. de La Salle set out from Rochelle, consisting of 30 men, among whom were pilots, smiths, carpenters, and other useful artists. 1683. Mustafa, the Grand Vizier, sat down before Vienna with an army of 150,000 Turks, and opened the trenches. 1694. Bombardment and destruction of Dieppe, in France, by the English. 1699. William Bates, an English nonconformist divine, died. He was chaplain to Charles II, a man of great learning, and the intimate friend of the first men of the kingdom. 1711. The Prince of Nassau, Stadtholder of Friesland, was drowned in his coach while ferrying over the Hollandsdiep, near Meerdijk. 1719. Bell, the traveler, left St. Petersburg with Ismailov the ambassador and a numerous retinue for China. They took the route by Moscow, Siberia and the Great Tartar Deserts, and did not reach Pekin until 16 months after their departure from the Russian capital, having undergone great fatigue during the journey. 1741. Edward Synge, an Irish bishop, died. He distinguished himself for above 20 years as an active and laborious parish priest, and his tracts, written in a popular style, have been considered of so much value as to require frequent editions. 1742. Richard Bentley, a celebrated English divine and classical scholar, died. His editions of the ancient classics procured him a great reputation for learning, but they were made the medium for retorting upon his contemporaries, who assailed him on all sides. 1748. An eclipse of the Sun observed at London. 10 digits eclipsed, and Venus seen in a crescent form through a telescope. 1762. Peter III Fedorowich, Emperor of Russia, died in prison. He acquired the enmity of the nobility and clergy by trenching upon their privileges, and introducing foreign customs, and was hurled from his throne by a conspiracy, after a reign of 6 months, and probably murdered. 1766. The Grand Junction Canal commenced, uniting the Trent with the Mersey, and opening a water communication with both the east and west coasts of England. Great improvement was originated with Brinsley, who is represented to have handled rocks as he would plum pies, and made the 4 elements subservient to his will. 1774. Captain Furneaux, who sailed in the Discovery ship Adventure with Captain Cook, returned with the ship, having reached 67 degrees 10 north, and circumnavigated the globe. 1776. Washington refused to receive a letter from Lord Howe, addressed to George Washington, Esquire, and afterwards another addressed to George Washington, etc., etc. The British Lion, on further study, gave his message the proper direction. 1780. Charles Batteuse, a French philosopher, died, eminent for his erudition and his private virtues, and author of several works on classical literature. 1788. Congress ratified the Constitution framed by the convention of which Washington was president, and it went into operation the ensuing March. 1789. Marquis de Mirabeau, an advocate of Quesnay's sect of political economists, and author of Aimé des Hommes, died. He was father of the fiery orator, Count Mirabeau. 1789. Destruction of the Bastille, at Paris. This awful fortress of despotism, of which the name had for ages inspired terror, and which had withstood a vigorous siege about 2 centuries previous, was invested by a mixed multitude of citizens and soldiers. Delaunay, the governor, displayed a flag of truce and demanded a parley, but abusing the confidence which that signal inspired, he discharged a heavy fire of cannon and musketry on the besiegers. This act of treachery, so far from intimidating the people, inflamed their rage and rendered them desperate. They renewed the attack with frenzy, and carried the prison by assault. The governor was seized and massacred, and his head carried in triumph through the streets. The Bastille was razed to the ground, and with it the despotism of the French monarchy fell prostrate in the dust. It cost 200,000 livres to demolish this edifice to its foundations, and the materials were sold for 36,000. 1790. Gideon Ernest Loudon, an Austrian field marshal, died. He was commander-in-chief of the Austrian forces, and so high was his reputation, that Frederick the Great of Prussia admitted that he feared nobody so much as Loudon. 1790. Grand National Confederation of France, at Paris, in the Field of Mars, when the civic oath was administered. Accommodations were made for exhibiting at one view 350,000 persons on this occasion, in a vast amphitheater. 1791. Commencement of the Birmingham riots, which were occasioned by the celebration of the anniversary of the French Revolution, by some private individuals. The destruction of property was very great. Drive Priestley's house, library, manuscripts and philosophical apparatus were totally consumed. 1794. British squadron captured, on the American station, 14 sail of French ships laden with provisions. 1795. The British took Simonstown, Cape of Good Hope. 1796. The British post of Oswego delivered up to the Americans, agreeable to treaty stipulations. The British had continued to occupy stations within the state of New York since the Revolution. As they marched out, the United States troops marched in, planted a standard on the ramparts, and fired a salute of 15 guns. 1798. Congress passed the famous Act for the Punishment of Sedition, etc., against the United States, commonly called the Gag Law. 1798. Battle of Shibrisa, in Egypt, the French under Bonaparte defeated the Mamelukes by land and water. 1807. George Saville Carey, an English dramatist and poet, died. He was bred to the profession of a printer, which he left for the stage. His writings all tend to awaken patriotic, generous and amiable emotions. 1808. Battle of Rio Seco, in Spain. The French under Genbesiers came upon the united armies of Castile and Leon, and defeated them in a desperate action, in which 20,000 Spaniards perished. This calamitous battle opened the gates of Madrid to Joseph Bonaparte. 1813. The United States schooner Asp, of 20 men and 2 guns, attacked by 5 British barges. After a gallant resistance, in which she lost 10 of her men and her commander, she was abandoned to the enemy. 1814. The British schooner Balabu, of 6 guns, captured by the American privateer schooner Perry of 5 guns, after a running fight of 50, and a close action of 10 minutes. 1817. Anna Louisa Germain Necker, Baroness de Steele-Holstein, died. Her talents were so early displayed that she was said never to have been a child, and she became distinguished at an early age as a writer, and by the spirit of her conversation. She was banished twice by Napoleon for attempting to thwart his government. Her works form 17 volumes. 1834. Edmond Charles Genet, a French statesman, died. He was a minister to the United States in 1793, and when superseded he remained in the country, and settled on the Hudson River. 1836. Isabella James died at Montego Bay, Jamaica, aged 110. 1848. A portion of the levee fell in at New Orleans, by which a number of persons were drowned and much property destroyed. 1852. The College of the Holy Cross, at Worcester, Massachusetts, destroyed by fire, partially damaging the library, which was otherwise wholly saved. 1853. Perry landed at Japan, and delivered to the Imperial Commissioners the letter from the American President. 1853. The Crystal Palace opened at New York, in presence of the President of the United States, and many other dignitaries. 1854. Duc d'Ecklingen, second son of Marshal Ney, died at Gallipoli. He commanded a brigade of cavalry in the French Army of the East. 1854. Abbas Pasha, Viceroy of Egypt, died at Binha, a small town on the Nile. He had reigned over Egypt since 1848. He was very unpopular, and under his rule the population decreased, and those that remained lived in great wretchedness. The only remarkable work of his reign was the commencement of the railway from Cairo to Alexandria. 1856. Enoch Lewis, a prominent member of the Society of Friends, died at Philadelphia, aged 81. He wrote much in explanation of the principles and practice of his sect, was for many years editor of the Friends Review, and was also noted for his attainments in mathematics.